Hey everybody, Jonathan Broadbent here, your host of UnWoke.Academy. Welcome to another episode. If you are watching live, don't forget to subscribe. We are on multiple different channels and platforms on Rumble, X, YouTube periodically when I think I can get away with it without my account getting dinged for talking about things that YouTube doesn't want me talking about, and various other platforms. If you're following us now, then don't forget to share and comment. Today, I want to talk a little bit about the Private Membership Association. So, first of all, this is the place where freedom economy meets follow the money. I have a background in finance. I don't hold this against me, but I actually was recruited by and worked on Wall Street for a period of time in institutional finance, which gave me some insight into the world of finance that I now use to highlight the bad actors and bring daylight to some of the badness and bad stuff in the world of finance. So, UnWoke.Academy, it's the place where freedom economy meets follow the money. There's a lot of that we do on UnWoke.Academy. It does more good for you, for us, for society, and for the Western values, however you want to define it. If you share that, let's get the information out. Everything that we do at UnWoke.Academy is shared freely. We just hope that people take it wherever you are. It's a go anywhere sort of an answer. We are kind of the opposite of most of what you see and hear from Wall Street. That tends to be an environment where everyone wants to sort of capture you in a sticky web and draw you in. Our thing is we want to push information out and encourage people to use it wherever you are, which brings me to the Private Membership Association. That's an actual organic offshoot. It was not intended, and it was not part of the original design and intention of UnWoke.Academy, but it evolved out of the research that we were doing. So just bear with me a second here. I want to do a little bit of backstory to UnWoke.Academy for anybody that's not familiar. And then from there, what is a private membership association and how does it apply, and how do we leverage that and use it to the greater good for our purposes? The first thing to know is that, interestingly enough, while on Wall Street, I was actually very heavily recruited there are a number of different firms that periodically they need somebody like me with my skill set and background and expertise in the world of finance and actually in business. And interestingly, it's kind of a cool spot that I ended up in the world of finance. I'm what's referred to as an ERISA subject matter expert. You don't need to remember that. It doesn't really directly apply. But at various times, law firms, accounting firms, corporations, multinational for sure, and people that do investment banking and mergers and acquisitions and whatever, they may need my skill set. So anyway, I was recruited by this Wall Street firm, and silly me, I thought I was actually there to do my job and started doing research into the decision-making process. In order to put that in perspective, and yes, this does lead us back to why in the world did I form UnWoke.Academy and what is it? And then from there, we'll get on to my intended subject, which is an organic, natural offshoot of that, which is the financial PMA. But while there working on Wall Street, I think the best, easiest, most accessible way to understand the role that somebody like me fills is think about your 401k plan. Not you personally, but the corporation. So if you're lucky enough, if you're in a position to have a company or an employer that offers a 401k plan at their level, at the employer level, there's a lot that goes into it. There's somebody like me that comes in and talks about the shape and form of it, and we consult with them on different matching formulas and how to do it and analyze the successes and failures, and we talk to them about what investments are good recommendations. We may make suggestions, or we do make suggestions about that fund menu. So what that means is that list of available investments inside of your 401k plan. Mine I'm talking about the company that I formed over a decade ago after leaving Wall Street, formed to answer those questions and consult with companies and do stuff for the plan administration. Anyway, that's a little bit into the weeds, but while there working on Wall Street, I saw this unhealthy practice of picking investment managers to put inside of 401k plans and things like them that had no visible backstop. It had no due diligence, no analysis. And I started to question that, and that led to me getting in big trouble. You know that feeling? Well, hopefully you don't, but the feeling of getting called into the principal's office, that was me in 2007. I got called into the regional manager's office and threatened with legal action and stuff if I kept it up. Well, it did. I got frustrated internally with asking the questions, and everyone just sort of shrugged and said, well, that's just the way that we do it. Well, there was such a ridiculous conflict of interest that I saw, and I saw no due diligence. And let me put that in perspective for you, just because you may be wondering, there are around 17,000 mutual funds out there. If somebody comes along at a major Wall Street firm and says, well, I'm going to ignore 16,999 of them, and I'm going to pick this one and just pump it into as many retirement plans as possible, and I'm not going to show any research. I'm just not going to look at them. And if you can see that there's clearly conflict of interest because there are kickbacks from that one, if you're reasonable and sane, you would call it out. Well, I was calling it out and nobody was responding, and so I wrote a big letter about it. The letter got me in big trouble. Whatever. Flash forward, and I started viewing my job as removing myself and being insulated from Wall Street and conflicts of interest so that I could do oversight from the outside. For the most part, for the average person, that needn't mean anything to you. That probably doesn't, and that's okay. There are some firms that have to or should, or actually, I don't know, I advocate for all firms that can do consulting on that level. When you're talking about the lives of tens of thousands or millions of people and billions of dollars, then why allow conflicts of interest? But I'm dragging a dead horse because I, at the legislative level, I lost that battle years ago, prior to 2012, when conflict of interest and fee and disclosure requirements hit in July of 2012. The carve outs and exemptions, it's an ugly, murky world. And I made moves to get outside of it so that I could consult. And I hope others do the same. But that led to kind of shifting the lens. Or before, I was thinking in terms of getting to Wall Street, and I'll admit, I was flattered, and I was very enticed, and the panache of working at that high level and with that sort of nameplate. Just as an example, I can see how people get caught up in that and start thinking like, "Oh, I'm all that," and I've made it. That sort of mentality. Just as by way of example, at the level I got to while working on Wall Street, there were some questions from a pretty high level person at a major organization that led to needing some questions answered from Canada. And Canada, to to our north, has a similar sort of retirement system, but I don't personally know and never really had the need to figure out how that works. So I actually made some phone calls and started asking questions. And within one day, I actually found myself talking with the Minister of Finance from I almost said California, Canada, the Minister of Finance. And I was like stunned. I'm holding the phone to my ear, like thinking, "Well, how did this happen?" I'm actually talking to the Minister of Finance. It was a great conversation. This gentleman proved very helpful, but that's sort of the level that you're working on. And the expectation when you're there is that you're operating with integrity. But I was finding huge worlds, big domains where there wasn't any. I couldn't find the integrity. It's infuriating. So that led to me getting outside of Wall Street and kind of viewing my job as kind of the distant observer, kind of next door and aware of Wall Street. That led to UnWoke.Academy. That and doing some, pardon me, I'm going to take a sip of water, keeping my voice going. So that and the appearance of this woke stuff, replacing tried and true metrics at due diligence and analysis with environmental, social, and governance, also called ESG, diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is just repackaged critical race theory, and all that stuff. So I've spent years, literally years, asking every manager that I can get a hold of, and that's a lot of them, or most all of them, how do you define it? What is the definition of that thing that you're now claiming to advocate for by steering investor dollars into it? If you are going to take let's just use a round number, let's say that they manage $100 billion or 10 trillion or whatever. If you're taking the $100 billion and you're changing the way that you analyze what is good versus bad investment on behalf of tens of thousands of future retirees, our great American workforce, what's the definition of that thing? And there is no answer. There's no answer. I'm telling you, there's no answer. I've spent years, and the closest I can get is a lot of my colleagues, friends, and compatriots in the world of finance will tell me privately, off the record, that they're worried about asking questions because they'll lose their job. So they're fearful. And if that sounds familiar to you, it's eerily similar to the environment that we had during COVID with lots and lots of doctors unwilling to ask questions about what was in the shot, or unwilling or unable to ask about alternatives. We saw what happened. Literally, doctors were threatened; their careers were threatened with cancellation. They were going to lose their license if they asked questions about alternatives to the jab. That similar, virtually identical environment exists all over Wall Street. It's easing, but it's still there. And what we ended up with, and this is kind of a frustration, I'm just going to vent for a moment because I have to, and everyone has to be aware of where we've gotten to. Similar to, I don't even know what the percentage is globally or nationally, however many people, I think it's a majority of people, they ended up with the jab, taking the shot. I think, I'm guessing many, all, nearly all, I don't know, some number of people regret that now. They regret that decision. But in a very similar fashion, we have the overwhelming vast majority of people all with the same investments. It's, I call it the globalist bubble, because so many people are, I'm sorry to say it, but conned into the notion that having an array of different mutual funds truly means that they're prudently, properly diversified. Well, I've just proven over and over again via UnWoke.Academy. Again, this is all public. I just share it all. Go find it, take it where you think appropriate, and share it with other people, because more people need to be talking about it. If you're working hard, I hope you are, and saving well, I hope you do, and you want a bright future for yourself, I want it too. I want that great, bright future for you during retirement. And if you're in an array of different super cheap index-based investments, or virtually anything these days, you might be in 10 different mutual funds with various different sounding names. But what I've been showing through that episode that I did called Parade of Woke Sameness, and talked about in my episode that I titled Globalist Bubble, you're way less diversified than you think you are. The chances are very, very good that you have an array of different investments that all put your money into the same or virtually identical small number of companies. And those companies, I argue, are ridiculously inflated. And just to make a little finer point on that, because people ask me, like, what do I mean by that? I was in a virtual conference a couple of weeks ago where one of the presenters made a great comment. By the way, if you are watching this on one of the platforms that allows you to make comment, you're welcome to. I'm keeping an eye on the comment section. If you post something, I will try my best to answer your questions or respond to your comments. Um, but this gentleman in this presentation a few weeks ago made the comment, and this was specifically about Apple. This is not a recommendation to buy or sell, but it is hopefully something that will put Apple stock and things like it into perspective. He made the comment that if you believe in the current stock price of Apple stock, the current capital valuation, then you believe that we will all be living in Apple homes, driving Apple cars, streaming on Apple devices, and wearing Apple electronics and using Apple phones. That's an indication of how an argument could be made, and I make it, that Apple is overpriced. I am suggesting that virtually everybody being defaulted into a series of mutual funds with different sounding names, and if they are all investing in Apple in significant ways, and you have, let's say, 10 different mutual funds, and each one puts 10% of their total investment into Apple stock, that's how you get where we are with the globalist bubble. Anyway, that's what led to, and that's the design and intention behind UnWoke.Academy. Well, pretty quickly, as I was putting information out there, I designed it to just be a public resource, a library of wokeness and the woke influence on finance. And yes, I recognize that some people are offended by my use of the term woke. I actually started it when woke was taking off, and it just meant um, the attacks against normal civil society. It meant, and clearly now, I think everybody's finally come around to the realization that the woke stuff means that the attacks, it means spreading racism, and exactly the opposite of what it was billed as. So anyway, I took the term and launched as unwoke, kind of to smack back, to clap back at the whole woke movement. Well, now I've actually brought up several times, and I've put out some polls and questioned people. Do you think that we should change the name? And everybody says no. It's pretty universal. The overwhelming majority of people want us to stick with that. So it is what it is. It's unwoke.academy, and we're going to stay with that. But as I was putting information out there and doing exposés on things like BlackRock and Vanguard, and then we did a deep dive into the institutional owners behind those companies that pulled ad revenue from X. Remember that? When there was huge pressure to basically try and either bankrupt the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, back when Elon Musk took over and he put his foot down and said that he was advocating for free speech and the freedom to communicate on that platform. There were advertisers that pulled their revenue. Well, we tracked those and reported on them. Well, very quickly, a lot of people started commenting and asking me the question, if that's woke and bad, and if those investments contain things that I don't agree with, they're against my moral value system or better judgment, like when people were boycotting Target or boycotting Anheuser-Busch, which is the parent company of Bud Light, or any of the other ones that people have gotten frustrated with and don't like the corporate policies. Some people, and I suggest a lot more should think this way, decided that they don't want to have their money invested in that company, because then the company takes that massive excess profit and does bad things with it. And I just read somewhere recently that the average compensation for many of the CEOs and chairmen of those companies that went woke for 2024 was a stock bonus of around 16, almost $17 million. So we've unfortunately got an environment where those people have personally profited from harming and damaging those companies. Well, the another offshoot of that, another damaging implication is many of those investments lost value. I think it was Target, I want to say, that had a reported $13.8 billion market loss when people started boycotting a couple of years ago. Well, if that was in your portfolio, then your portfolio got harmed. And if it was in your portfolio 10 different times, then 10 of those things dropped. That's part of the harm of being in a bubble and not knowing it. And many, many people out there have been led to the idea that they're properly diversified, but they're not. So, a private membership association formed from the knowledge that we have. Some people, and I think it's a lot, want they want somebody to come and implement the answers. So everything that we do at UnWoke.Academy is there for you to grab and take and share it with whoever. If you have a broker, financial planner, or advisor that preferably isn't woke, or at least you can strong arm, twist their arm into making them move your money non-woke, then great, go for it. But a private membership association, if you're not familiar with it, it showed up right at the right time. In my world, I was actually unfamiliar with the structure of private membership associations, but they've been around for a long time, for many decades. They have worked their way through the legal system all the way up into the Supreme Court and gotten favorable rulings, I think, pretty much every time. It's a way of structuring a business that's designed to be to insulate people and create some level and degree of privacy. So there are all kinds of different private membership associations out there. They're very common, I think, in um, like healthy and organic sorts of environments, people that do growing and sell farm to table, those kinds of things. I think you'll find private membership associations fairly common there. It's my understanding that finally making the decision to launch a financial PMA, or private membership association, we were the first to the scene. And as far as I know, I think we may still be the only one. I continue to advocate for other people out there to make the same decision and go the same way instead of working for Wall Street. And this is a little direct appeal to other colleagues, my compatriots in the world of finance. If you work in finance, consider a PMA as an alternative to the mega um, Wall Street globalist bank sort of thing. Here's what that looks like, and I'm going to put that in a different context because it's it's unusual. And as I said, I think we're the only ones operating as a PMA in the world of finance. But again, kind of drawing an analogy to healthcare, we have now these mega hospital systems. And as we've learned, or you should by now know, your doctor can be controlled and influenced by protocol. I have to air quote that in what they can and cannot prescribe. And that's unhealthy and harmful. Your doctor didn't go to medical school to be a relationship manager and simply put everybody on the same 3 to 5 different medications or whatever the protocol is and inject everybody with the same thing. What your doctor should be able to do is treat you as an individual. There are people that have left the mega hospital environment and they've opened more regional healthcare, health and wellness centers. Those, I'm all for it. I love that. I think that all day long, those people who are qualified and skilled that can get outside of the mega hospital. And let's face it, many of the mega hospitals are in large part funded by big pharma. So big pharma exerts influence over mega hospital, and mega hospital dictates what your doctor can and can't do. That's an unhealthy environment. And in similar fashion, we have globalist banks, mega managers controlling or exerting undue influence on Wall Street, and you end up with advisors who aren't looking at what they're actually doing. They're not lifting the hood, many of them, on what the actual investments are. Many are not aware of what's happening inside of that mutual fund or whatever the investment vehicle is. And they're not paying attention to the implications of an array of different investments, like the analogy that I used. If you're in 10 different mutual funds and they're all virtually identical, in my world, in the past, an advisor would catch that. A financial advisor should catch that. Well, when a financial advisor gets out of that system and starts to reinstitute integrity and ask the questions, look under the hood, research, and do some of their own due diligence, I think that any common sense, competent advisor out there is going to quickly get to the point where they're going to do things very, very differently than globalist bank mega managers and Wall Street want. That's massive profit for them. In a private membership association, it's a very different structure. You have to prepare yourself. It's not for everybody. But for, again, drawing the analogy to doctors, what if, and I actually just met with one a couple of weeks ago, where it's a small cash fee. I go in and the doctor isn't trying to pump and make all kinds of kickback revenue on shots and pills and all that stuff. I actually met with and talked to a doctor. I found it refreshing and wonderful. This doctor was asking all kinds of questions about my diet and how much exercise I get and if I sleep well and mental health, physical health, how much exercise do I walk? I'm like, this is so refreshing and awesome. And that, I don't know that that's a private membership association, but if it's not, it's something very similar. Why aren't more people talking about that type of relationship in the world of finance? There are doctors that are doing it. I know of a bunch of them near me. They've broken free from the mega hospital and they just do a cash subscription. So I don't know what it is. Just use a round number, whatever, $5,000 a year or something, as an alternative to the huge insurance fees and then the massive amount of billing that goes on for prescriptions and all that stuff. If you find a good one, and if you end up outside of that hospital system with a good doctor who coaches you to good mental and physical health, you're in a better situation, a better environment for probably a lot less money. I've created the financial PMA to be the same thing. If you like it, great. The website's financialpma.com. But if you have a financial advisor or planner or broker or whatever, or if you are one, duplicate it. Take everything you see there, all the research that I've done, all the reporting back, and the comments and the judicial summaries from our Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court on private membership associations. Hoorah! Have at it. How many people work in the world of finance and tell you, duplicate my research? That's what I'm doing. That's what UnWoke.Academy is. If you like parts of it, you work in finance, or even if you don't, take the parts that you like. Don't use the parts that you don't like. Take the financial PMA, build your own, replicate that, because that is the way that we can fight back and defund the woke, stop funding things like the growth and expansion of the Chinese Communist Party's military. That, by the way, is an episode. Go back and watch the episode that I did with Justin Bernier from National Security Index. They actually reported to Congress in early 2024 that some of our mutual fund managers have found their way through offshore managers to putting our money, our retirement savings, into the Chinese Communist Party. And specifically, there are some companies within China controlled by the Chinese Communist Party that are expanding their military. We're funding that. You may be funding that. You shouldn't want to. But if you have a typical, I don't know if I should say typical, if you have a financial advisor who is working on or for or with Wall Street, the chances are pretty good that you may have some of that in your portfolio. Easiest and best way to avoid that is to take the information that we've got, all the reporting we do at UnWoke.Academy, and get it somewhere. Do it somehow. Your advisor may be able to do it for you. There are plenty of advisors out there, and I'm meeting lots of them, and I'm reporting on some of them. Matt and Drew from Inspire, they actually I've partnered with them. If you like them, go back and watch some of the episodes. I've interviewed Matt and Drew several times. They are with a company called Inspire, and they are decidedly not woke. You may like them. I don't know, hire them. I'd like that, because if you do, some of the revenue from that relationship comes back to fund more episodes like this one. But there's no necessity that you work with Matt and Drew. Find people like Matt and Drew wherever you go. Get your money out of the bubble. Get your money into non-woke investments. And here's the last piece of the puzzle, because it's awesome. On February 21st, President Donald J. Trump issued a America First policy statement. It is the America First policy statement. I've done several episodes on that. The objective is to defund the woke, basically. Not his words, those are my words. The purpose and intention of the America First policy statement, it threw down the gauntlet and told finance, capital markets, big banks, the investment managers, and the world, stop putting all the money into a small number of globalist, mega cap, huge companies, and let's start funding free business enterprise, small business again. Let's get back to making America great again. That is part and parcel for what our objective is here. It is a large part of what we aim to do at UnWoke.Academy. It's a big part of, or actually all of the financial PMA is geared toward doing exactly that. So if it's a fit or you're curious, go check out the website. It's financialpma.com. There's a little video from me at the intro. It speaks a little bit more about what it is. But as I said, if it's not a fit, or you want to do it elsewhere, great, have at it. Copy the thing. This has been another episode of UnWoke.Academy. Thanks for listening.